Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest on the breakdown of this cold spell, as we are going to be seeing some pretty stormy weather as we head into the weekend and start of next week. Not only are we looking at one potentially named storm, but we're actually looking at two. One may be moving through on Sunday and another into Tuesday as well. We have got variable intensities from the models, but the majority are showing 60, 70 or even 80 mile per hour wind gusts, and we have already got a preliminary yellow wind warning issued for many western and northern areas from the Met Office. So in today's video we'll look at the latest from the live radar, see what's going on this evening. We'll have a look at the weather warnings, concentrating on the warnings for the stormy weather. Look at the UKV to see what that is showing this evening, and then have a look at some of the longer range charts, not only to look at the risk of those storms in the next sort of week or so, but also the longer range, see what is in store for the rest of January, because it is looking likely with this stormy weather to be going pretty westerly, mild, wet and windy. But are there signs perhaps that we could see high pressure return, and could that lead to some blocking towards the end of the month and start of February? We'll look at that in the second half of the video. So remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now, as I said, in this video we are going to focus on the stormy weather that could be really quite disruptive through the weekend and start of next week, but we are looking sort of a few days ahead. At the moment we've actually got some exceptionally disruptive weather around across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland at the moment, and we do have amber snow warnings issued for parts of northern Scotland. Do check out the video I posted earlier where we went into that in a lot of detail and concentrated on the short-term snow risk. However, if you are sick of the snow and want something a bit milder, then it does look likely the snow will be stopping within the next day or two, and all areas will be a lot milder come Saturday and Sunday. If we do start on the live radar though, just to give an update this evening on what is going on, you can continue to see those heavy snow showers packing into northern Scotland, and you can see snow across much of northern central Europe here. This weather front about a week ago was forecasted to impact southern areas, giving 20-30 centimetres of snow, but it has tracked slightly further southwards and have given some flurries across the southeast through today, but nothing more than just a few flakes in the sky. All of the heavy snow across much of Europe. You can see, if we put on the past 24-hour snowfall, we've seen a lot of snow across Europe here. Snow totals getting up towards 20 or 30 centimetres across northern France, into Belgium, and across parts of northern Scotland, 20 to 30 centimetres as well. And if we do put on the latest temperatures, it is going to be a frigid night. Temperatures widely across the United Kingdom dropping below freezing, and I'm recording this around 5:30, so it is going to be a very cold evening. Maybe not quite as cold as last night, we got down towards the -12, -13 degree mark, but it could be widely colder, with forecasted overnight lows pretty much down to -4 to -6 in the majority of areas. Now, if you go over to the weather warnings, you can see we've got multiple weather warnings through the rest of today, multiple weather warnings through tomorrow, even more weather warnings impacting more areas, and still some weather warnings into Friday as well for snow and ice. Now, I do go through most of these in a lot of detail in the earlier video, so do check that out if you want these in depth. But we will look at the warning we didn't look at in the earlier video. We'll have a look at this wind warning we have seen issued earlier today for Sunday. Now, at the moment, it's covering all of Scotland, all of Northern Ireland, all of Wales, southwest England, and northwest England. But I do think this could be expanded further from the looks of some of the latest runs. And it is for this really stormy spell potentially through much of Sunday here, as we are going to see a period of strong winds that could bring disruption to travel and utilities across parts of the UK. A period of strong winds and persistent rainfall is expected across parts of the UK during Sunday, while there is still some uncertainty on the exact locations which will see the strongest winds. Northern and western areas are likely to be most at risk, of course, closer to the centre of the low. But even areas across central England, eastern England, some of the runs are producing 70 mile per hour gusts here, so it is still one to watch, even if you aren't in this warning zone right now. Many inland areas could see 50 to 60, maybe as much as 60 to 70, and I must say that is on the low end at the moment. Some runs are getting up towards the 80, 90 mile per hour point, and even 100 mile per hour out to sea. Now at the moment, if we look at the warning matrix, you see it is medium impact, but very low likelihood. This is likely to change quite a lot in the next couple of days. Definitely in its likelihood, it is likely to go up. There is even the risk to get to the highest impact scale, depending on the severity of the low. At the moment, the UKV, which a lot of the warnings are based off, is kind of in the middle of the pack. Some runs are a bit weaker, but there are some runs that are a lot more intense. And if some of these more intense runs come off, then I do suspect that impact could be moved to high impact in that case. But we'll have to keep an eye on it, and I'm sure this will be updated once again tomorrow and in the subsequent days. Now, if you look at the latest UKV, we'll start on the precipitation, but we will run through the next couple of days quite quickly, as we have looked at that in the earlier video. You can see snow continues to pack into the north. Again, amber warnings and yellow warnings issued, and could be pretty widespread for coastal areas through Thursday. But it all starts to die down through Thursday evening into Friday. Precipitation actually increases across Scotland, but more of it starting to turn to rain as that wind does veer to a more of a westerly direction, and it does bring milder air in. Still over the higher ground it's snow, but to low-lying areas, milder air is pushing in. See cloudy conditions through Friday evening, and this is because we are seeing a low move in. Now it is initially just going to bring some rain and nothing too disruptive, but it's as the next low moves through into Sunday, we see this big wall of rain appear. This system here, this is where we could see some exceptionally gusty and stormy conditions as this system moves through. We are seeing highly variable conditions. For example, yesterday evening the UKV had a big hook with this, which could have been locally even stronger winds. Here it's less organised, which would mean the winds will be better forecasted and probably not quite as intense, but regardless would still be potentially disruptive through much of Sunday as this does move through. If we do look at the wind gusts associated with this, initially we see sort of 40-50 miles per hour through Saturday, but could get up to 60 to 70 miles per hour into Sunday, and look at that 80 miles per hour for coastal areas across especially the Irish Sea coast there. And even as this stretches inland, look at that 50, 60 or even 70 miles per hour further eastwards as well. So if this came off, I wouldn't be surprised if to see the warning zone extended eastwards, especially through the evening of Sunday, and eventually this system does clear through. Now there is looking like a real possibility we see another storm system move through on Tuesday, but it's currently outside of the UKV's time frame. Majority of runs do have the Sunday system being more intense than the Tuesday system, but not all. So it's the possibility that Tuesday could be even more severe, but it is still about 6 or 7 days away. We'll just continue to see what the models do produce, and hopefully in the next couple of days we'll have more guidance on that. But yes, a very stormy system moving through on Sunday could bring some big disruption as that moves in, because not only are the winds very intense, but the wind field is exceptionally large, covering most of the British Isles here as it does sweep through. So it's not just locally very strong winds, it's widespread, and that could mean disruptive weather up and down the country. If you look at the max temperatures, again, we have covered this in the earlier video, but we'll go through it briefly again. Temperatures over the next few days, widely down towards freezing, and overnight tonight, bitterly cold, -4 to maybe as low as -10 once again this evening. Tomorrow again could be a nice day in many areas as the very coldest air does wrap southwards again, and we see a similar pattern into Friday. But by Friday afternoon to the evening, it doesn't get quite as cold, still below freezing, but by Saturday many areas are starting to get up to the mid to high single digits, and by Sunday could even get the double digits as that storm system moves in. So turning much milder, but much more windy and much wetter for all. Now, if you look at the latest GFS, see what that has for the next sort of few days, of course, and then longer term trends as well. You can see low pressures coming in off the Atlantic as we head into the weekend. Initially pretty unsettled, but it's as these lows here develop on the southern side of this big mother low, that is where we could see exceptionally stormy conditions sweep through there through Sunday into Monday. Very tight isobars, that is going to give very strong winds. Again, we'll have a look at those wind gusts in a minute. That's the first system that comes through, and then the second system could move through there on Tuesday, and it looks like the GFS is even more intense with this, pushing the wind field slightly further northwards, so perhaps less disruptive for England or Wales, but still would be pretty intense across parts of Scotland there. Eventually it does die down, and this is the pattern we have in around 7 or 8 days' time for higher pressure to move in. There's a lot of uncertainty with this. Majority of runs are showing high pressure influence. We see that on the ensembles with the reduction in precipitation. but its capacity and what it does, we have really no clue. Now, the GFS yesterday, actually, in some of its runs, produced a bitterly cold easterly. Here, it has a go at building high pressure up towards Scandinavia, and actually does get it towards Scandinavia, but never really gets the wind into the east, as the westerlies are too strong. So that's definitely a trend we are seeing for the longer term towards the latter part of January. High pressure building in, trying to build up towards Scandinavia, but at the moment we're not seeing any definitive outcome. If you go over to the WX charts and have a look at these wind gusts, you can see nothing too crazy over the next couple of days, but into Sunday you see that big wind field arrives, exceptionally strong winds, actually the strongest here for England and Wales, so slightly further southwards than the UKV had it, and very strong through Sunday and even into early hours of Monday as well, again with those strongest winds across much of England and Wales. We're looking at 130 kilometres per hour here, which is around that 80 mile per hour point. Again, it's about 1.6 kilometres per hour for every 1 mile per hour. So 160 kilometres per hour, that would be the 100 mile per hour point. So here, roughly 80 mile per hour wind gusts. It does die down, but then into Tuesday, we see the next storm system. And as I said, the GFS has this system further northwards. Still looks pretty impactful for England and Wales, but the strongest winds here through Northern Ireland, the far north of England, and for southern Scotland. Again, wind gusts here towards a 130, 140 kilometres per hour point. So again, we could be looking at 80 mile per hour, especially along that southern flank as that moves through, and then still some gustier winds. But as we see high pressure move in, it could hold those winds further out in the Atlantic, with those storm systems staying further away. But there definitely is scope, especially for that system on Sunday and again into Monday and Tuesday, of being named storms. Now, if you look at the latest GM, again, westerly winds coming in over the coming days. We see those storm systems arrive, potentially not quite as succinct in terms of a centre of the low there. It's more of an area of stronger winds for Sunday into Monday, and then to Tuesday, another low moving in, but similar to the GFS, moving it much further northwards, so it could be a lot more impactful for Scotland there than areas further southwards. And then eventually towards day 10, again, you see that break in the pressure, trying to build high pressure towards Scandinavia, having a good go at it, but no definitive outcome at this stage. You can see, though, cold pooling is starting to appear across Scandinavia and Eastern Europe. And again, if that high pressure did get going, we'd start to draw this back in from the east, and that definitely does look like a really plausible pattern towards the latter parts of the month and early February. But from the looks of the latest modelling, do not expect anything remotely cold or any easterlies within the next 10 days, to maybe even as long as 2 weeks. It's around the 2 week point to beyond, so the last few days of January to the early part of February, that's when we potentially are looking at easterly winds could arrive. But at this stage, just seeing the initial modelling of the pattern developing, not even getting towards that easterly wind point yet. Unfortunately, we can't have a look at the GM wind gusts on WX charts, but we will have a look at the ECMWF. Again, westerly winds starting to come through this weekend. We see that initial low move through Sunday into Monday. Again, most impacts further southwards with the very strong pressure gradient there, and then the next low moving through northwards again into Tuesday and Wednesday. There is quite good agreement between the models on the tracks. It's just about the intensities and exact position of the wind fields at this stage. So there is actually reasonably strong consensus in the positioning, which is important, but we now need to pinpoint the severity of these lows. Again, though, at day 10 we see that pressure build to our east and over the top of us, not as much towards Scandinavia, but still seeing that pressure trying to push northwards. And again, it'll be one of those to watch towards the end of January. Again, if we look at the WX charts for the wind gusts, as we head into Sunday, very strong wind gusts. Again, maybe not quite as strong as the GFS, but still exceptionally strong across much of England and Wales, getting up towards the 120 kilometre per hour mark, maybe 130 there. Again, we're looking more at around 70 miles per hour for that, maybe 75, so very strong nonetheless. And then as we progress through into Tuesday, the next system arrives, and this is very intense indeed, 161 kilometres per hour there out in the North Atlantic. That would be well in excess of 100 miles per hour in places, and you can see as it approaches, it does weaken inevitably possibly, but still 130, maybe 140, so again 80 kilometers per hour. So very similar from the runs, pretty strong agreement, but we'll have to continue to see that agreement in the next day or two, and then I suspect we'll see these systems, or at least the first system, named, and of course more warnings issued. From the looks of the latest modelling, I do suspect both systems, if it stays like this, would be named, especially the one on Tuesday, because it's on a working day, so disruption is more likely, and I would suspect widespread yellow warnings and potentially even amber warnings associated with these systems as well. They are going to be we're going to have to watch them very closely. Could be very intense as well, and again, coming off the back of a pretty still, cold spell, it could be quite a shock to the system. The only positive I would say from this is it is going to be turning the temperatures milder, so if you don't like the freezing cold conditions at the moment, it is going to be turning milder with these systems. It is going to drag up warm, moist air from the southwest, so that's the one positive. It is going to be turning milder. Double digits looks quite likely in southern areas for at least a few days next week, so perhaps you can put the hats and gloves away at least for a few days, maybe even slightly longer. If you finish by looking at the latest ensembles, the latest GFS ensembles are just loading, so we'll refresh the page. You generally see it's bitterly cold the next 3 days, but temperatures rise through the weekend. You can see those storm systems moving in. 2 definitive spikes as the low pressure systems arrive. You see the second spike's not quite as high, and that's because the low pressure is further northwards, and that would mean that we are less likely to see heavier precipitation further southwards. But of course, if we look at Glasgow, equally high precipitation spikes as the rainfall is further north. Perhaps the second one is slightly higher there. But going back to London, you can see the upper air temperatures are up and down. Bit of a zonal sine wave, slightly above average, pretty typical from a west to southwesterly tilted jet stream. But you can see the precipitation totals after those 2 storm systems move through do reduce, and that is symbolic of higher pressure ridging. But no hugely cold runs yet, definitely giving you signs that not in the sort of short to medium term are we looking at anything remotely cold. I will go back to the 6 o'clock run. You can see there are a few colder runs right in the extended range towards the end of January, start of February. Those runs, I've had a look at them individually, and they are pulling in easterly winds. So the scope is there right in the extended range, but not for the foreseeable future at all. Definitely, though, late January, early February could be when that sort of pattern could arrive, and I do think that we'll see some interesting output in the next week as that period of interest does come closer. So other people forecasting, suggesting that early February could be the next period of cold weather. From the looks of the latest runs, I do agree that that is a possibility, but can't say for certain until we start to see some of those cold runs actually come to fruition, and we actually start to see some consistency, which all could come in the next week or so. But we just have to keep a very close eye on it. If you look at the latest ECMWF ensembles, very similar, cold at the moment, turning milder, and again, staying above average in terms of the upper air temperatures, and you can see precipitation is still there, but less in the longer term, and there is a little dip in the extreme extended range, again, a couple of colder runs, but again, nothing to shout home about, so it is broadly very similar to the GFS, but I do suspect, as similar to the GFS, the next week we are going to see lots of chopping and changing. I do suspect we will see some very cold runs in the longer term. Whether they come off or not, cannot say for certain until we get there, but definitely do think from the latest model output we will be seeing some bitterly cold runs appearing, because that high pressure is going to be building in, and there will be runs that do push it towards Scandinavia and do pull in a beast from the east, from Siberia. That is just going to happen. We're going to see at least some ensemble members going for that, and there is the risk that even some operational runs go for that. And if the operationals go for that, then it is going to be eye candy to look at, but it is still most likely will be in the extended range, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. Make sure you stay safe out there in the next few days with the snow and ice. Again, check out the video earlier for the impacts from that, and of course for the stormy weather in the longer term, as that could be perhaps even more widely disruptive as we progress into the weekend. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.